Welcome back to the COG Weekly podcast, Season 4, Episode 7.
Deep into
Where are you?
episode 7. Dude,
Where
I
are
know,
you, Leo?
right? Where am I? Like,
What is this
I don't even
background?
know. I don't even.
Yeah.
Paul, do you know where I am?
No idea.
No clue.
If you guys listened to last episode, you'll know that I was moving, and now I have successfully moved. The cinder blocks in the background maybe don't do it justice of how quality the setup is.
Yeah.
But it is pretty nice. I like the scarves. If you're watching on YouTube, watching on Spotify, wherever you watch the podcast, you'll see the scarves. If not, you can just envision it. Just a beautiful USMNT scarf followed by a beautiful Minnesota United scarf followed by a third beautiful Brighton Hove Albion scarf. 3 of the best scarves you could have. I mean, in the footballing world.
I think
If
so.
we're being honest.
Yeah.
We
I have
do-
a couple there, too.
Oh, yeah.
In
A
the
couple.
back.
A couple.
Just a handful.
I don't think we've ever addressed how many scarves you actually have in the background.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue.
Are you going to, when you move, are you going to bring all of them? There's no.
No.
Yeah.
I might bring a couple, but
Yeah.
probably
What do you
3
think the
like
most
you.
important are?
Looking back there, I'd probably say that Minnesota one, the
That's a class
Southampton
scarf.
one, of course. Maybe the Southampton one when I went to the game. You see the Liverpool one
Yeah,
right there?
yeah. So that's like the one I have for the USMNT, which is like USA versus Honduras, the
Yeah.
coldest game. I have, that, like it marks
Yeah.
the date.
Exactly.
So you have one of those for Liverpool
for
Southampton?
Liverpool Southampton when
That's
I went.
sick.
Probably just a handful, just like 2 or 3. But
Yeah. No,
I have no idea how I'm
quality.
gonna decorate it.
Is the Minnesota United scarf like old or something? Because I see it, the design at least,
Oh,
it looks a bit
Yeah.
older.
That one is when we played Bournemouth. They were handing out those scarves.
So that was back in the NASL days.
Yeah.
Only OGs of US soccer
Yeah,
can remember
it's
the
very
I was
NASL.
at that game.
You were,
Yeah,
Paul?
man.
I was
Well,
at that
before
game.
we talk about that, let me just introduce Paul to everyone. If you don't know,
Yeah.
Paul ran the Woolwich Worshippers podcast, talked a bit of footy, regarding Arsenal and their squad last season. Enjoyed that, and now he's here to talk with us about Arsenal and all surrounding football related to Arsenal today. If you can see in the I don't know if you can see based on how we're going to crop it. I'm actually not sure. But I just realized they might not see your scarves, Mac. I don't
Yeah.
know. We're going to have to find
Yeah,
out.
probably
But
not.
in Paul's camera, if you're listening, I can just describe it to you. He has a beautiful image of Arsenal's legends. What even is that? Is that he's moving the camera. Sick.
There it is.
Arsenal Legends poster. I actually got it when I was in England one time. So we've got Henri, of course. We've got Ian
Oh, yeah.
Wright. We've got
Of course.
Freddie Edenberg. We've got Patrick Vieira, Tony Adams, Robert Pires, and Dennis Bergkamp.
Wow.
And then right next to it, okay, that's getting a bit fuzzy. But
Yeah, it's getting a bit up there.
there's an Invincibles thing where it's it lists all the players and then a bunch of statistics about the season.
Nice. Paul's going to be 5 miles down the road. We have
Yeah.
the stadium. If you can see it, I don't know. Maybe show you the
Yeah.
window.
If you
It's getting a bit
want me,
fuzzy out there.
I can really adjust my camera, and then you can see my Emirates Stadium sign above my bed.
Just
Have you
decorate it
ever-
all over.
Have you ever been to the Emirates? I mean, being such a diehard Arsenal fan.
I have. I went. I did the regular stadium tour when I was there, and then I also went to a game that was Arsenal at home to Man City back in the day.
Sick.
I
That's
did the-
so cool.
Yeah,
It
I did the
finished
stadium
2-2.
tour. Yeah,
Mac, you did the stadium tour of
At the
Emirates?
I did.
No
It-
chance.
I did this spring. That's why I have the Smith Rowe jersey. But
Mm.
I really liked the stadium. Actually, I was surprised. It seems smaller than it is. Because what is it? Is it how? What's the capacity?
I think
Do
it's
you know?
62,000. I think
Yeah, it's up
it's one of the biggest in the Prem.
When you look on the outside, it's not huge, but when you're so we go through the tunnel and then you're where
Yeah.
the coaches and stuff stand, and that's when you really feel you're oh, this is a lot of seats
No, but
there.
you know what's
I think-
crazy? You go on the stadium tour and you walk out and you're holy, look at all these seats. Now
But they're not
imagine
full.
being one of
Yeah.
the players, bro.
Yeah,
You walk out of that tunnel, you just see 60,000 people.
It's
That's
insane.
crazy. That's
Or-
so mad.
Or if you're a City fan, you walk out and you see about 10,000 people.
Well, of course,
All right,
that's a
Paul.
whole other topic of discussion. The quality of
Paul.
City supporters and whatnot.
Yeah.
That is a whole nother topic of discussion. I don't really want to aggravate any Man City fans.
Our
that
mate
are
Patrick
listening.
might not be too happy about that joke.
No.
True, yeah. There are some City fans that also follow the podcast that might not be too happy about that comment. If you're a City fan and you're listening, don't take it personally. It's something that Paul said. We didn't say it. You know, when Paul
Yeah.
comes on, we can't control him. He's got a mouth of his own. He can do whatever he wants. This is his
Classic
place
Arsenal.
to rant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Classic Arsenal fan. Classic.
Yeah,
They make the good TikToks though, right?
They do. They do.
They make the good TikToks. Well, Paul, we introduced you, and now people know you're an Arsenal fan. They probably don't know the extent to which you are an Arsenal fan. I don't think anyone can really get that without knowing you personally. You have quite a connection to the club. If you watch an Arsenal game with Paul, you will fully understand how much Paul cares about that club. But just so that people can get a little bit more perspective, why did you start liking Arsenal? Why did you start following them? Just so that people can sort of hear, you know, because they know why me and Max sort of follow our respective clubs, but we have a much different story because they're lower down in the tables.
So it's a funny story, actually. So my dad supports Man United. One time when I was young, I was like probably like 4 or 5 or something like that. My mom wanted to give my dad like a little soccer ball, like just as like an anniversary gift or something, but she accidentally got an Arsenal ball. So I was like,
No.
oh, look at this.
Accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally.
So you became an Arsenal fan because of an accident.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's crazy.
I think around that time when I started supporting Arsenal, my dad bought me 1 or 2 Man United kits just to try to convert me, but I wasn't having any of that.
Paul can't be
Nice.
converted. Once you go Arsenal, you can't go back. It's not
Yeah,
possible. Not possible. Well, it's interesting because most people who are around our age, maybe a little bit older, but sometimes also younger, say that they love Arsenal because of the whole Invincible era, right? That's what most people say. They're like, oh, I loved watching that team. But no, not for you. Accidental ball turns you into an Arsenal fan. I mean, it's class. I love it. I mean, everyone's got their own story, and whatever draws you to a club is fine as long as you're able to be a diehard supporter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather be a Arsenal fan at the moment than a Man U fan. Although both clubs
100%.
have both clubs have maybe not been great in the past couple of years, but you know.
True. Well,
I think we're going in the right direction finally.
Yeah.
There were a few years where there wasn't so much light at the end of the tunnel, but
No.
like even like a year ago or so, like even if it wasn't the brightest days for Arsenal, you could see that there was a small glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, and that like even if we have our bad times and we have our bad results, we're still going in an upward trajectory. It's kind of like you go down a little bit and you've got your troughs, and then
your
you go up,
troughs.
your troughs, and then your peak is higher than your trough. So eventually you're still
I see. Yeah.
going in the right direction.
Dennison is teaching you well. Dennison is teaching you
I
very
literally
well.
used that analogy from my Macro 101 class.
Nice. Nice.
So-
Well, I could understand that.
Oh yeah, you displayed it very well.
Yeah.
the explanation was good. So what you're essentially saying, right, is when Arsenal began doing business with Brighton Hove Albion Football Club, you guys started looking better.
100%.
So, I mean, I think that all teams should take note of that, barring Chelsea and Man City, because I'm not too happy with the work that they've done with the club recently, or the work
Yeah.
they've attempted to do with the club with Cucurella leaving. I'm not a huge fan of that personally, but other clubs take note. When you do work with Brighton, you become better. We produce the best, the
Well,
literal best.
Southampton, I think.
Well, I
might
feel
have
like
more of a shout there.
so
maybe.
you do have Southampton has a shout, right? But here's
Yeah.
what I say: do you prefer to be an Arsenal fan right now or a Southampton fan right now? Because
Oh,
I feel
Arsenal.
like last I checked, it was a pretty tough result this weekend.
100% an Arsenal. Now that I mean, we just lost to Tottenham, so I have to be an Arsenal fan now.
No, you do.
I was really excited when I saw Southampton got the opening goal today.
I mean,
I
Ward-Prowse
was
is
as
the
well.
only
I have him
one.
in my fantasy team.
Do you
Or
actually?
Cross.
Yeah.
He's a good pick for fantasy.
Dude, he is. And I
He
saw Todd
does-
Cantwell put him in. And so I was like, well, yeah, I didn't put Todd in the swag 11. So I have to respect Todd in some other ways.
Yeah.
So I went with JWP instead of, I think the other options for that price it was Martinelli. And Martinelli also scored. So I would have gotten the same price regardless.
I do have to give a shout out to Romeo Lavia, 18-year-old midfielder, played the whole game, best player on the pitch by far.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean.
better than any of the Tottenham players either.
Well,
maybe
the
Sessegnon
score line
played
doesn't
good.
maybe reflect that.
No, but he played midfield, and
Yeah,
you know,
he was pulling the
I
strings.
think he had like a 93% pass success rate, and he's a very good player. Very good.
Would
player.
it
It's his
compare
Premier
to
League debut,
Pedri? Like Pedri when he was in the
For sure,
Euros.
Pedri.
Yeah.
Yeah, very safe
See-
passes, but he makes every single pass, and then will dribble around a guy.
He's dictating the tempo.
He is.
That's
100%.
absolute class.
100%.
Absolute class.
Yeah.
I did speak on the swag 11 a little bit. Paul, you know what the swag 11 is, right?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard
Of
not
course.
to when you're
Of
a
course.
COG Weekly fan. It's really hard not to know what the swag 11 is. But we did the swag 11 for last episode. If you didn't watch it, go check that out. It's one of our favorite episodes to do. We did just sort of finish the polls for
Yes.
the swag 11. We did them last night, and they're sort of just finishing up. But we have a really good general sense for how each one is panning out. I don't think they're gonna like sway too much. I'm pulling them up right now just so that I can talk about them on here so that everyone knows. You will see there's a graphic that probably will have gone out by the time this went up, saying the final swag 11. But if you don't know, just like a couple ones that I thought were interesting that we talked about last time, and I also want to know Paul's take on this, just sort of a like extension to the swag 11. Kimpembe lost on a landslide to Thiago Silva. I mean, Thiago Silva
Really?
had 70% over Kimpembe, which I thought
Wow.
was crazy. Like, absolutely insane. Don't you feel like
Wow.
Kimpembe is quite the saucy player?
Yeah, he was on our thumbnail. I would have thought.
That's what I'm saying.
I voted for
Kimpembe as well.
Thiago Silva.
You
Yeah.
did, Paul.
I
Okay,
did
so
vote
now
for
I need to know
Thiago
why,
Silva.
because the people obviously agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, just think about you go to Thiago Silva's house.
Well, I can't think about that because I've never been there.
Yeah, but like just imagine it. Like
Yeah, but imagine
just- I can
Kimembe's
just
house. This
imagine-
goes for both.
I can just imagine Thiago Silva like inviting you in, dressed in a nice suit, and just
Yeah.
cooks you this perfect Brazilian steak.
So you want to be on a date with Thiago Silva?
I would
Paul
say,
wants to go on a date with Thiago Silva. Confirmed.
I wouldn't turn down the opportunity.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
I don't think any of us would, if we're
Yeah.
being honest.
I reckon Thiago Silva makes the best steak in the Premier League.
Oh,
There's a
Really?
good shout. Dude, Brazilian steak is so
Yeah, but-
good.
Ever had picanha?
No. Wait, no. So my roommate's Brazilian. He was talking about
See.
picanha.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a great slice of steak.
It is?
Like it's like the prime sirloin.
Okay.
Mm.
Have you ever
Yeah,
been to
that-
Fogo de Chao?
Of course, I go there all the time.
All the time?
Okay, not
Where are
all
you getting the
time.
funds to go to Fogo de
Yeah,
Chao all
wait,
the
wait,
time?
I've probably
minute.
gone like 5 times.
That's,
oh, all
I
the
mean,
time.
It's one of my
Every day.
favorite places. You've got to go there for dinner though, because when you go for lunch, they always overcook the meat.
So
Oh,
they switched
That's
the,
just like the
the cooking
standard.
times. I love that. They switched the cooking times. That's class. That is
Nice.
class. I mean, dude, Brazilian steak is so good. Brazilian steakhouses
Absolutely.
are so good. I have a friend who, back home, who cooks Brazilian steak for me and my family. Sometimes he comes over and helps us with dinner and makes it. And he'll put, it's like special Brazilian salt, and then he'll put pineapple on top or under it, and then you serve it like with the pineapple. You eat it with the pineapple. Dude, it's so good. It's crazy. Like the best steak I've ever had in my life.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's insane.
It's the best.
Paul, I'm with you though. I'm with you.
Mhm.
It's
I was-
class.
I was at a nice steak place when I was in Switzerland. Apparently, Lugano, which was where I was staying, apparently had the 92nd ranked steakhouse in the world.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you went there?
I did go there.
And it was good.
It was good.
Did it
yeah.
taste like a 92nd ranked in the world steak?
I think my problem, I did go for a picanha there, but I shouldn't have because I was in Switzerland. I should have gone for an Italian steak instead.
Oh.
So you go for the
But it was
Brazilian
still- it was
steaks
still
regardless.
What?
You go for the Brazilian steaks regardless.
Brazilian
Pretty
steak
much.
is definitely a go-to. But
Mm.
Yeah.
if I was to go back to Europe, I'd definitely have like a European steak.
What's the difference
What's the difference?
for the people
Well,
listening and for me? I have no idea.
it's just like Brazilian. Like, would you trust a would you trust an Italian person to cook a Brazilian steak or an Italian steak more? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Well, yeah, no. What's the difference between
fair.
the Brazilian and Italian steak? Do you know? Like, is it a
Oh
cut of
goodness,
meat or something?
I have no idea.
It's just like the way they do it. That's crazy.
There's
That is
probably some
insane.
minor like
There's got to
thing.
be there's something.
Yeah.
There's always those steak guys who know like every different cut of the steak. Like
Yeah.
they
You see
know where
those on
like
TikTok.
every piece of meat comes like on the cow.
Yeah, bro. Those people are crazy, but they make really, really good food. So I'm not
Yeah,
complaining.
Mhm.
The other one that I want to touch on from
Yeah.
the Swag 11 is the manager. And so I was able to put a picture up for these polls, right? So it seems like the manager
You
would
used
be.
the picture.
I
that we
did.
talked about.
I used
Yeah.
the picture, and I don't know. Maybe I mugged off Arteta a little bit with the picture I chose. Maybe not. He's in his like all black fit, which is sort of trademark Arteta. So I thought I could go with it.
Yeah.
But Arteta won 73-27,
Wow.
and that is crazy considering Sinisa was wearing the off-white Jordans, and he had the full suit on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
don't
surprised
appreciate
that the people don't understand.
They
I mean,
don't.
that's a class fit. Did you see the fit, Paul?
I did. I also picked Arteta for this one.
Well, yeah,
well,
but
okay,
obviously this is
yeah.
bias.
Partially due to the age though. Like
Mm.
that's definitely going into it. Arteta's a young manager.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
Also, he completely rocks the turtleneck.
he does. He's good with the
does.
He
turtleneck,
does.
but like I don't
think-
know how you can say no to the off-white
Well,
Jordans,
but-
man.
I'm a
That's
turtleneck
crazy.
fan. I'm a turtleneck fan myself.
Okay.
So I kind of have to lean that way. Even though
Yeah.
he pulls it off like 10 times better than I do.
Yeah, you had a lot of bias going into that vote, I feel like, but
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
yes,
that one's a tough one.
Yeah,
That's a struggle. I mean, I don't know how much bias you're gonna have talking about Arteta in general. We want to talk to you about how you feel about Arteta like this season. Coming from when he first signed with Arsenal, being the manager, all the way to what he's done now, and then also future plans. Like, how do you feel like he's going trajectory wise in what he's supposed to be doing with the club versus what he is doing?
I think you look at where we were when he took over. When Unai Emery sacked, we were a sinking ship sitting in 15th. And look at us now. We're challenging for the top four and probably going to be one of the favorites for the Europa League too. So it's night and day, the difference. And you just have to hear what some of the players say about Arteta. Just look at the players he's brought in, how much they've improved us. Like our starting 11 now is almost entirely Arteta players. And if you compare that to the starting 11 we had against Frankfurt, I believe was Unai Emery's last game, it's completely night and day. Like who would you say are Arsenal's best players currently? Probably Bukayo Saka,
Odegaard.
I mean, Gabriel Jesus is probably one you have to include.
Sure, Jesus. So we've got Saka developed under Mikel Arteta, Odegaard, Mikel Arteta signing, and even a signing that when we made it permanent, there were some people who weren't completely sure about it. But he got that one right clearly. Club captain now too.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel, Mikel Arteta signing. Jesus, who looks like he's coming good. Mikel Arteta signing. So many of these players that are improving Arsenal are Mikel Arteta signings.
Yeah,
true.
I mean, he's quality. Do you think that there could be anything improved
Coaching
with
wise,
what he's doing?
I think if we keep going on the trajectory we are right now, like eventually we'll get to the point where we have to be, the expectation will be that we're competing for trophies. And if it's Arteta versus Klopp or versus Pep for a Premier League title, like who's going to win that? So like one or two things need to happen at that point. Either Arteta needs to improve massively as a manager to compete with those two, or we just need to make a step up from Arteta at that point. But that point hasn't happened yet. So I think we just keep trusting the process, see where it ends up. And then when it's the time to where we need somebody else, then just go get somebody else.
Yeah. I personally, I'm a fan of his now. Like you said, a year ago even, I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. But I think his coaching style and like tactically, it's been more clear this season and the end of last season what he's trying to do. You have like somewhat Pep style, I'd say, with the fast build-up play. Once you get into the attacking third, and then I think, like we said, Odegaard, I think is your most important player, just because we just saw from the Crystal Palace game, him playing off of Jesus was like a very, very threatening attack. Because last season they didn't really have Lacazette wasn't a great hold-up player, I don't think, and Jesus can really do everything. He came short for the ball, but he has the pace and the strength to play on his own. And yeah, I really like what Arteta's doing tactically. I think you guys are a fun team to watch, and I think definitely stick with him. But what are your expectations for, like, what's the highest position you think you're going to finish, and what's the lowest position you think you would finish this season?
So realistically, our goal is to finish top 4, 100%. So do I think it's realistic that we could finish above Spurs and Chelsea? I think we could 100%. Will we? I'm not sure, but I don't think it's realistic for us to finish any higher than that. We're not going to finish above Liverpool or City. So I think that means the highest place we could finish is 3rd. I think the lowest we can, as easily as we could finish above Chelsea and Spurs, we could also very easily finish below them. I also think there's a possibility that Manchester United come good under Ten Hag. I would say there's less of a chance than anything else, but I still think there is a possibility. So I think lowest could be 6th, but that wouldn't
That's
be
your lowest.
Yeah. I don't
Interesting.
I don't see us finishing below West Ham or Newcastle. Not at this time. Maybe Newcastle in about 2 years, but not at this current time though.
That's crazy that you think 6th place is the lowest that you guys could finish, because I still feel like there's room for you guys to possibly slip up in certain areas. Like, yes, you've strengthened the squad really well. Yes, I believe in what Arteta's doing, et cetera, but I still feel like there's a possibility that you guys can slip. Do you actually feel like that is completely eliminated? Because I only think there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that I think have a completely solidified chance of not slipping up later in the season, just because of the consistency that they've showed throughout the year.
Well, with the Premier League, like, anything can happen, like Leicester, things like that. So never say never, I suppose, but it's just like what I think is realistically in the realm of possibility. I think our squad is too strong at this point to finish below the likes of Newcastle and West Ham, who are teams that are in transition, I suppose, with Newcastle and West Ham. I suppose this is kind of a weakness of Arsenal, especially last season, but don't really have the squad depth to compete in 2 competitions. But one signing that I think is absolutely crucial for that, Alexander Zinchenko.
Yep.
Because last season, the last few games of the season, we had 2 key players missing. We had Kieran Tierney missing, and we had Thomas Partey missing. I think it's a fair assumption to say that if we had those 2 players fit, we would have picked up 3-6 more points maybe and would have finished top 4. That's not an excuse to say like that's why we did, but like it's something that we knew was a weakness and we've gone and addressed now. Zinchenko can play in both of those positions. So when Kieran Tierney is injured now, we have him who can fill in there, and we don't have to depend on Nuno Tavares with all due respect. And then in the midfield too, when Thomas Partey is injured, Zinchenko can just slot in there.
When I think about it, it's actually a crazy good signing. I don't think I ever deeped how effective Zinchenko can be as a squad player, regardless of if he starts or not, because you can use him or utilize him in so many different areas on the field that it eliminates the possibility of so many people getting injured and not having a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I also think, from what I've heard, is he's a great character to have in the dressing room. He's not the type to moan or anything if he's sitting behind Kieran Tierney or Thomas Partey. And furthermore, I think you can slide Jesus into this too. Like we've got 2 players from a team who've won 4 Premier League titles in the past 5 years. Surely that has to have an impact in the dressing room too. Like they're used to winning.
Yeah,
Surely that
100%.
mindset will fall into other players too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a locker room, or you didn't before, full of winners, I'd say, like you said.
Yeah.
But now you're adding these two players that are used to winning maybe 34 games out of a 38 game season every year, and that's just, it has to help mindset wise. Like, you can probably see it in training. I'm sure they just hold themselves to a higher level. I personally like Zinchenko at midfield more than wingback, because I think he has the passing ability more than a lot of your midfielders and a lot of other midfielders in the Prem, but I don't think pace wise, like, he's going to be an explosive wingback, where I think maybe his passing and just soccer IQ in general can show more in that midfield. And we see it with Ukraine when he plays with them, he plays as an 8, and he's really effective. So do you think he's probably going to play more in the midfield, or didn't he play like around both positions against Palace? I feel like he moved around a bit.
He played as a left back against Palace, but like how we play a lot of the time is we generally have the back four, of course. Usually it's Tomiyasu at right back, but it was Ben White yesterday. And what will happen is the left back, whether that's Zinchenko or usually Tierney, will push up a lot because Tierney is excellent going forward. Mm-hmm. And then he'll just slide into basically a back three because Tomiyasu is a more defensive fullback. So Zinchenko, I think, will do a lot of that too, because at City, he would how Pep likes them to play. He likes his fullbacks to step into the midfield and get another player in there. So I definitely see that's something that Arteta will adapt at Arsenal, because that is something you saw a couple times. Like when Ainsley Maitland-Niles would play, he would do that because he can play as a midfielder. So I think Zinchenko will do that too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's just one of the 5 or so players that you guys signed over the window that I feel like could have a pretty good impact in your team. I know you're talking about how he specifically is going to be so effective because of his ability to play multiple positions and increase that squad depth. But I mean, you guys also signed Marquinhos from Sao Paulo, Matt Turner, everyone's favorite in America, from the New England Revolution. Yes. You signed Fabio Vieira from Porto, Gabriel Jesus, who everyone who plays FPL knows about right now and probably has in their team. And then also, like we were talking about, Zinchenko. So we know how you feel about Zinchenko, but how do you feel about Arsenal's overall window? Because this is another way that you can assess how Arteta's doing with the team, right? Last year, a lot of people had questions with the 50 million price tag that Ben White had and how you guys brought him in. And I think overall, Ben White proved to people that he could live up to those expectations. But then again, this year, people were concerned about if he was going to play and if other people were going to take his position and if certain money was going into areas that they didn't need. So how do you feel about that window for Arteta as a manager?
So let's do it player by player. So first, the goalkeeper, Matt Turner, mostly just a backup. I think we've all watched plenty of Matt Turner as an American. We know that he's a solid goalkeeper, maybe a bit of a jump to Arsenal, but I don't think that's not something we have to be worried about it at all.
Oh yeah.
Then to Marquinhos, he's just a young player. I don't expect him playing much this season. Maybe we'll go out on loan, maybe be in the under 23s. But then Fabio Vieira, this is what I'm interested about, because I'll be lying if I said I watched Porto every week. But
31.5 mil on the price tag though is pretty hefty.
It's an expensive signing, but like it's not my money, so I'm not really bothered about the price tag.
There's no way that you're saying that is representing it like Arsenal as your club. You're still an Arsenal fan. I feel like you'd be conscious of your budget.
I care about who comes in, not the price tag for it. Like if we were to spend 100 million pounds on Lewis Dunk and then sign nobody else, then I wouldn't be happy about that. But it's like, it's not the price tag attached to it that matters to me. It's the player who comes in.
Does Pepe bother you then?
Not really, because 35 million in today's market though. Like,
yeah,
is that really that much?
But Pepe was like 80.
Yeah. Pepe bothers me, that one, because we're not going to get much money back on him at all.
Exactly, but also you could argue, right? Even for Fabio Vieira, could you split that money and get 2 players that are similar, if not equal in quality, for half the price, or maybe some people from lesser known leagues or areas that might have more potential? Because you do have to see, is the amount of money that you're putting on players going to be effective, right? Ben White was sold for $50 million from Brighton, and I feel like that was a good deal for us because we signed Ben White from League One, from Portsmouth, I believe, and we feel that we can, as a club, I shouldn't necessarily say we because I'm not going to be doing the signings, but as a club, we feel that like the club can sustain a process to get more players in like that, right? But if you can't keep like sustaining a process to get more players in like that, then you're going to struggle. And when you're putting a lot of money on someone that you don't know how he's going to turn out, it is questionable.
Well, you can say the same thing about Aaron Ramsdale last season and Ben White. They both were a lot of money, and people were like, "Was this guy really worth it?" But no, they both proved Arteta to be right. So I don't think I have any reason really not to trust Arteta on this signing either.
Okay, I mean, respect.
Good numbers in Liga NOS last season. I think he had like 12 assists or something like that.
So you would rate it a good window?
I would so far, yes. There's still a couple areas I think we need to improve.
What would that be?
Number one, definitely another midfield player. Right now in that area, in terms of natural midfield players, we've got Partey, Xhaka, Elneny, and Lokonga. If you're considering Zinchenko a natural midfielder, we've got him too, but he's more of a rotation player. So the last two, like, I'm not sure they're what we need at this level. If we want to go forward, maybe as third or fourth choice, but I think they're too high up in the pecking order right now. And to be honest, I am a Granit Xhaka fan, but I think as a club, we can do better than Granit Xhaka. Like, there's still like undisciplined moments within him. Like we saw it yesterday. He got booked for diving.
Yeah, I saw that.
It didn't really end up meaning anything, but like he walked a tightrope all game. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And Granit Xhaka easily can get another yellow card at any point in time. So I think that's an area that we can improve upon.
No, I'd agree. Yeah. I would agree. You do still have some areas, but when I really think about it, Arteta's done a good job with the resources that he's been given. I mean, the only questionable one for me was, the one that we talked about, 31.5 mil is a lot for Fabio Vieira when you don't know so much about him. But again, the coaching staff, the scouts, they know things differently than we do. They've been watching him. Like you said, you don't watch Liga NOS, and I can't say that I religiously watch Liga NOS either. So it's hard to really understand why they might have done something like that. But then again, Darwin Nunez, someone that I don't think any of us really watched very many games of last year, comes in and he's already scored a goal for Liverpool. So, and by the time that this episode comes out, well, I suppose he won't score more by the time this episode comes out, but by the time you're listening, he might have scored again. So, I mean, we just never know. It's all a mystery, but I think overall it was a good window. One thing that I wanted to ask that you sort of talked about earlier was how Unai Emery left the club in 15th place, and then Arteta came in. Do you feel like Unai Emery failed at his job, or do you think he came into a club that was already failing and just couldn't turn it around because of what he was given and what he started with?
I think it was both. Like, it's no secret that Arsenal was an absolute mess under Unai Emery with every way imaginable from top to bottom. He had an average squad, but at the same time, it's not the owner it's not like Stan Kroenke called up Unai Emery and was like, "Hey, I think you should play Lucas Torreira in a 10 today." Like, some of those like tactically questionable decisions are just ridiculous. And I can go on and on about so many games. There's the Chelsea one in the Europa League.
The trauma just continues to haunt you.
And we, as a club under Unai Emery, we reached the lowest I'd ever seen us at.
Yeah. So you think it was lower than the end of Wenger's time?
Well, we were sat in 15th.
Yeah, but I think that it's hard to evaluate based on the place that you're in, right? I mean, it's a decent way of showing how you've done throughout the season, but I also think there's a lot more components that go into where your club stands at the moment, because you might have just had a really bad run of form, but you might have a good squad overall, or you might have built the team well, or you might be seeing promising promising things in your build-up play or your attack. Especially with Brighton, I've noticed that more evidently, sometimes we lose games or we go on losing streaks, but I'm not mad because I see a general progression in the team, right? I think that I see something is improving, something is getting better, certain areas are being ticked, and slowly we're improving to the point where now, 4 years after we've been promoted, I can say pretty confidently we're going to stay in the Premier League. So, but throughout those 4 years, we've had times when we've looked awful, like really, really bad. So I don't think you can just say it based on the 15, but I do think it's a decent indicator. But do you feel like other things outside of just the place were going really poorly?
Well, first of all, we were sat in 15th in November, so it's not like we just had a couple bad games. It's like it was a consistent run of form. We were a sinking ship, but apart from that, like it was just absolute dross. The performances completely ridiculous. I remember one game, it was like third or fourth game of the season. Once that season we were in 15th. We were 2-0 up against Watford in like 30 minutes. Aubameyang scored twice. And then we capitulated and Watford completely dominated us for about 60 minutes of the game. And they ended up having like 20 shots against us, like 20 shots against a Watford team. Like that's just.
Was Troy Deeney playing? You
no
can't
idea.
count him out.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing from the Unai Emery to the Arteta is like man management, because especially like honestly, just look at Granit Xhaka. Like with Unai Emery, he was like, wasn't that when he walked off the field and like threw his captain armband and was like he went from that to now being a starter, and like all the fans, I think most of the fans respect him at this point. I'm not sure. But that's the vibe I'm getting, and I think he's somehow won his way back from doing that. Like I don't know how many players can do that. But we saw like Aubameyang lose his captaincy under Arteta because he was like, probably with Unai Emery, he could get away with a lot of that stuff. And Arteta comes in and then was like, all right, I'm not putting up with this, takes away his captaincy and then gets him out of the club. I think Arteta is probably underrated for that part of his game, just like building the culture. And I think it shows because I don't know many other teams in the Premier League who are as exciting as your team right now. I think it's also because you're one of the youngest squads in the Prem too. But you're also good at that point too. Like it's hard to balance that where it's like a lot of young players, but at the same time you're getting results, which I think Arteta has started to balance out. And I think this season will be really interesting because last season you were the youngest team in the Premier League and it kind of showed at some points because you were pretty inconsistent. But now I think it's really time to show if they all matured from that 1 year and now they can push on to actually compete, not just be like, oh, it's an exciting team, but we're finishing in Europa League, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing you mentioned was about the culture. I think that's absolutely crucial. That might even be the biggest thing that Arteta's brought. You look at the profile of player we signed. They're all under 25 players, as opposed to when we were under Unai Emery, we were signing the likes of David Luiz.
Socrates,
yeah. players like that, like washed up players.
Nah, you can't say Socrates was washed up.
That
guy was a beast at Dortmund.
He actually had a decent like first 6 months at Arsenal. Then from then on was just.
I can see the trauma in your face as you start talking about the time when Unai Emery was managing. Like you say Socrates and your eyes like slowly lower down your face.
We haven't even mentioned Mustafi yet.
Bro, I remember the days when you used to text me and you would be like, I will pay someone to allow me to drive Mustafi all the way over to Italy. Like I will ship my car to London, drive him to Italy, leave him there, drive back and fly back. You said I will pay someone to be able to do that.
Yeah. I remember we were playing for Valencia in the Europa League semifinals, who we signed Mustafi from, and we were like, leave him there. Lock up the team bus. Send a message to Valencia that says, we don't want a refund or anything.
Just get rid of him, please. Just take him.
Leave him there. Lock the team bus. No refund. Squadron, if you're listening, no hard feelings.
Oh, jeez. He's a top bloke, but
He's a top G.
not good enough. Not good enough to play for Arsenal, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah.
at some point he was, yeah.
Yeah,
A while back.
for this first 6 months, we thought we'd signed like the reincarnation of Franz Beckenbauer. Then after that, not anymore.
No, not
Do you-
quite.
do you
We'll
remember
just
that?
say not anymore.
Yeah, do you remember that? Like the first 6 months,
I do
No,
not
I
remember.
remember.
Ian
I don't
Koscielny, they had like the best like center back pairing in the Prem at that point.
Yeah, he was like very good for.
He was immense.
Well, Lauren
Yeah, a
Koscielny
little
was a
bit.
beast.
Lauren Koscielny was a very good defender.
He was very good. I mean,
Yeah.
for
Until-
Arsenal fans,
until he tore his Achilles and then was just
Yeah,
is that why he slowly declined?
well he was declining anyways. But at that point, like,
Didn't
sorry mate, you probably should move on from the top level.
Didn't him and like Per Mertesacker play until they were like 39?
Maybe
They
not
were-
that old.
Dude, they were really old though. No,
I
I
remember-
remember they were old.
You remember Claude from Arsenal Fan TV?
Yeah.
Well, rest in peace, Claude. First of all, but
Yeah,
I remember
we have
one
to
time,
we have to say it. Respect.
one time after Koscielny was playing in that one season, the season under Emery, he in his like post match interview, he said if Koscielny was a horse, he would have been put down.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I can't!
Wow.
I can't! I
Wow.
can't!
wow.
Paul, that's on the internet forever.
I know.
That's on the internet.
Arsenal Fan
forever.
TV had some crazy.
Arsenal
Dude,
Fan
no,
TV.
That was the most
that's-
entertaining time of Arsenal Fan TV, but it was
Yeah.
also just because you guys were just so
Arsenal
bad.
Fan TV's past its prime now.
Yeah,
Paul, do
it
you think
is.
you could have been on Arsenal Fan TV if you were older during that time?
100%.
You think so?
I think I'm perfect for Arsenal Fan TV.
Why don't you just like start up an Arsenal Fan TV USA? I stand correct. I suppose it's harder to do when your team's actually playing well.
Yeah, it is.
Like
Or
they
it's
thrive
harder
when
to
you
start
are
up. Like
bad.
it's usually like what would happen was like you get your big break through like a massive rant or something. But like once you're big, like people watch like the Arsenal Fan TV videos all the time now, whether they win or lose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just-
but I
it's
feel
like-
like they don't go as viral, don't you
It's
think?
just like the big moments. Like if your team loses against Spurs or wins against Spurs, like it's gonna be like you're gonna get a lot of hits then.
Yeah, true. No, that game is big, bro. My dad is going to the North London Derby.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, so the Vikings go and play in London this year. I don't remember who they're playing against, but he will be in London when the NLD is happening. I think it's the first time around, not the second. I might be wrong.
Is it at the Emirates or is that at Spurs
It's
Stadium?
at the Emirates. He's actually already been to the Emirates, but he's going again for the NLD because it's just different, bro.
Yeah.
Do they
That'd be
sell
crazy.
like a half and half? Like, how do they do it?
I've like for the scarves.
No. For seats, right? Because
No, it's just the away
ton of-
end.
It's just the regular. Like there's just the away and the Spurs fans have to go there.
Okay, because like, well, people are just so close. You'd think so many Spurs fans would want to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So you think those tickets are harder to get?
100%. Yeah.
Oh,
So-
they'll do everything to make sure it's mostly Arsenal, and only the Spurs fans are in the away section. Because then, like, it's home, home field advantage.
Yeah, but if I can find a ticket to that game and be in the home section, which is like 80% of the field or 80% of the stands, why can't a Tottenham fan do that and just go and root for Tottenham?
Well, they can, but they have to be undercover. Like
Yeah,
I know when I
like
was
that's
going,
not going to go well for them.
when I was going to the Arsenal game, I was in like the box tickets, and they said like we had like a dress code, like you weren't allowed to wear like any like away colors at all.
Really?
Yeah.
So there couldn't be like a raid of people that just came in and Spurs stuff and just like suddenly the Emirates turns to like Spurs stadium.
Well, all the
essentially.
like
Well, first
season
of all, if
tickets.
you rock up to the home section wearing a Spurs kit in the North London Derby,
He'd probably
you are a brave soul.
Yeah,
That would be kind of crazy.
you can try that, Leo.
Yeah, I
Let
can
us
try
know
that, and
how
I'll never
I'll
do the
take that on
podcast
as a wagon.
again.
Yeah, let's see how that goes. See how that turns out.
Do it Brighton versus Millwall. Is that a rivalry?
No,
What?
no, I think it's well, we have
Who's
obviously
your rival, Brian? Oh, Crystal
Palace.
Palace, right?
Crystal Palace,
Yeah.
Bournemouth, kind of, Southampton, kind of, and like I say those last two really lightly because it's just South Coast.
It's not really. Yeah, it's not really a rivalry.
No,
Like
yeah.
ours is Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we don't have that rivalry with Portsmouth though. It's weird. Like it's South Coast, but then Crystal Palace is in the South Coast. I don't even know why you have a rivalry with Crystal Palace.
Yeah,
There's
Crystal
no
Palace is
idea.
it's
That's
in
what
London.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
You might have been rivals with Millwall too, because Palace are rivals with Millwall, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
are they?
I think so.
They're
So
both
do you-
London.
London, yeah.
The question that I have, because I feel like an idiot sometimes when I'm like hyped up for the Brighton versus Palace game. Do you think Palace fans care more about the Seagulls rivalry or the Millwall rivalry or whoever else they feel that they have a rivalry with? Because that's our biggest rivalry. But if that's not Palace's biggest rivalry, we look like idiots.
Well, I heard that. Like, I've heard people say, who are Liverpool or Manchester United fans, they're like, "Oh, we hate Liverpool more than we hate Man City." Like, I've heard that before, where it's like,
Yeah.
Man U and Liverpool hate each other more than like Liverpool hates Everton or Man U hates Man City. It's just because they're in the same city, but for some reason that's a bigger rivalry. you
Well,
know?
yeah, it's like it's traditional rivalry
Yeah.
versus what the media hypes up. Because the media is
Yeah.
always just going to hype up the Manchester Derby. They're always going to hype up the Merseyside Derby. I mean, they're not always going to hype up the Seagulls versus Palace Derby, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it happens on Derby Day still. So, like,
Yeah.
the media sort of decides that versus the actual history of it. But yeah, I
That's
just feel
true.
like an idiot if, like, I'm all hyped up for that game and then, like, Palace fans just don't even care.
Yeah.
You know what
It's
I mean?
like, it's like that with Chelsea too, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
who would you say Chelsea's biggest rival was?
No idea.
Would it be us or
Like
Spurs?
Tottenham. Yeah.
Yeah, like whoever it is, like both us and Spurs, the main game is the North London Derby.
Yeah, so it's like Chelsea don't have. I mean, Chelsea have Fulham. It's kind of their rival.
Yeah.
That's like
yeah,
that's
but
their
that's like
rival
a bad one.
because they're like maybe 2 miles apart from each other.
That's
but
like
It's
that's like
good
me
and
being
bad.
rivals with Conor McGregor.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's a rivalry, but it's not like a competitive rivalry. You know?
Yeah.
It's just a historical one. But
Paul, I feel like with that statement, you're kind of over exaggerating your ability to
That's a bit
do
generous.
MMA. I feel like you versus Conor McGregor will be a lot quicker of a match
yeah, maybe.
than Fulham versus Chelsea.
You don't
I
think I
just have
last
to put
90
it out
minutes
there.
against Conor McGregor?
What?
You don't think I last 90 minutes against Conor McGregor?
Absolutely not. I think you last 9 seconds and then
9
get
seconds?
knocked out.
I think less. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 3 seconds. Dude, that would be an outrageous match. Connor, if you're watching, don't approach Paul because I'd be scared for his life.
Yeah.
If Conor McGregor somehow sees this, then he can challenge me to a boxing match.
That is outrageous, Paul. Well, that's
well, like,
crazy.
He's never going to. And if I have the opportunity to box someone like that, like
Would you? If you had the
I would-
opportunity to
yes,
box,
if I had the opportunity to, like, yeah,
Why?
I'm gonna get destroyed, but like it would
You'd
be
get-
kind of sick to
you'd
say,
get-
oh yeah, I got destroyed by Conor McGregor. Just the fact that you like you got to share a ring with him.
nah, Paul, I don't think you understand.
I think that's
would
the feeling.
die.
Before you.
I don't think I
like,
would die.
Dude,
I'd
no.
be I'd break a nose and I'd have a couple
Yeah.
black eyes, but I suppose I'd be lucky to get out of there without a concussion. But
Wow, he's risking the concussion. He knows full
Nice.
well that he's going to go in
Nice,
there
yeah.
and get one, but he's still doing
no,
it.
I would totally
Mad.
do that.
That's crazy, Paul. I mean,
It's
I
like-
think we just have to leave the Arsenal section at that.
I'd get
Yeah, we
That
do.
defines an Arsenal fan right there.
Yeah, we
Would step into the ring with Conor McGregor and not be scared and willing to get.
I'd be terrified. I'd be absolutely horrified.
What's
I'd
the
still do it.
gain?
What's the gain? the pride. Like, can you imagine me walking around the Denison campus and I could be like, and people will be like, oh yeah, that's the kid that fought Conor McGregor.
No, they wouldn't say that, Paul.
Yes,
They'd
they
say that's
would.
the kid who got killed by Conor McGregor.
Yeah, is that not cool?
No.
Because also you surely I'd get some money from that too.
Well, yeah, you'd probably
You'd have
I'd be
to
all
arrange
over
that.
social media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
DAZN would be all over that.
I'd become like a semi-influencer, like a C-tier influencer. Like,
You could make your
Oh,
own
yeah.
AFTV if you fought Conor
Yeah.
McGregor. You could probably make your own. You'd have a big enough following.
You would.
That's mad.
I would love to be on AFTV. I think they need some new signings.
They do.
If you were
It's
gone,
like SNL. They're slowly just depleting. It's actually the same.
If you were gone for various reasons, which we don't need to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can leave those
Yeah.
sort of short.
Maybe we move on.
I is still there.
Ty
is still there.
Ty and Robbie will always be there.
Ty's like Messi still at Barcelona until last season. like Suarez has left, Neymar has left.
Yeah, he's just
And
the
like-
Yeah, he's the last one.
Claude left.
Yeah.
He is the last one, and he continues to be. We do have two more things to do, though. I want to get away from the lovely chat about Paul getting destroyed by Conor McGregor. If it happens, it happens, and we'll all be watching it and rooting for Paul for a whole 2 seconds. But now we need to talk about the Hassani of the Week. We have 3 nominations. We're going to be deciding it with Paul this week, like we did when we had Eli on the podcast. So the 3 nominations are Mitrovic, Jamal Musiala from Bayern, and Rafa from Benfica. So 3 players that are generally pretty known. Jamal Musiala, someone who's sort of coming onto the scene right now with Bayern, and all 3 of them scored a brace. So Mitrovic scored his brace against Liverpool in a 2-2 draw. Jamal Musiala scored a brace for Bayern in a 6-1 win versus Frankfurt, and Rafa with 2 goals for Benfica versus Aruca in a 4-0 win. Paul or Mac, who wants to start with what they think about these players in the nominations, and then also who you give it to?
I'm thinking for me it's between Musiala and Mitrovic at this point. I think for 2 different reasons. Musiala had 2 pretty simple goals, I'd say, but he is a young player and a very good Bayern team, which is always impressive to break out into a very good team at that young of age. And then go and score a brace against Frankfurt, which is a decent side. For Mitrovic, though, his first goal was he pretty much dunked on Trent and at the back post and headed it over him. Incredible from him. And, it's good to see because obviously he scores like 50 goals in all comps last season. And then, he hasn't had the best of luck in the Premier League. But I think this game has really shown he can do a lot for Fulham if he is, on fire. And he did score a pen, so he had the brace. 2-2 draw versus Liverpool is incredible. I don't think anyone had predicted that for Fulham. So I think he really helped out the team there, and I think significance-wise, Mitrovic definitely had more of an impact on his team. But Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, what you just said there, Mac. Mitrovic proved so many people wrong with that performance. Like when Fulham came back up, people are like, "Oh, they'll go down back again easily."
Yeah.
Mitrovic will get 5 goals this season, and then we just completely proved them wrong. I also think, look at it like, how many times are Bayern going to stick 6 past a team in the Bundesliga this season?
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't want to be the person. I don't want to be like the Prem merchant who's like, "Oh, Mitrovic did the Prem, so
Yeah.
we him." But it's like Bayern Munich will score 6 goals multiple times this season. Fulham will be lucky to score twice again and get a draw against Liverpool.
Wow. Wow.
It's fair. No, it's fair.
No,
Yeah.
against Liverpool and City, that is.
Oh, yeah.
It's more difficult to do what Mitrovic did
Yeah.
than what Musiala did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
agree.
I see it. I definitely see it. I think the main thing, which you touched on, Paul, is that Musiala did it in the 6-1 win. Regardless of the league you're in, it's sealed. You don't need those 2 goals. Mitrovic won the point for Fulham in a battle of a season. I mean, it's just started, but Fulham need to fight to stay up.
That's a huge point, even if it's the first game of the season.
Exactly. So I think that means a lot more. I think we've all agreed that Rafa didn't quite make the cut for the top two. So I think I just have to give it to Mitrovic. And if I'm hearing from you guys correctly, I think you guys give it to Mitrovic as well. Moving to the rating, I think because, we're starting the Premier League season, I'm bumping it up a little bit. The notches are going up slowly as we move into competition that matters a lot more. And I think it overall was a good performance. I mean, Paul, you compared Mitrovic's header to the picture of, what was it? Spider? It was
Venom.
It was Venom dunking on Spider-Man.
Dunking on Spider-Man.
I don't even know how you came up with that comparison, but you did, and it looked kind of sick. It did work pretty well. So I mean, he had two really good goals, and I think that for me gives him a 7.9. And I know that's high. I know it's high compared to last season. I mean, last season we reached the high 8s, and that was for unreal Karim Benzema performances. But still, I think he deserves that 7.9. It wasn't quite like a Champions League game winner like Anthony Olenga had last season. It wasn't quite like that, but I think it was really solid, and I think that it doesn't get him into the 8s, but it warrants that 7.9 from me. What about you, Mac? What do you think?
7.9 was in my head as well before you even said it. I was like,
wow, it's wavelengths.
I was like, okay, this is a very impactful performance. He drew the penalty as well for his second goal, so he really did it all for both goals, and I think I agree, not quite 8, especially first week of club season. I'm not sure if we can give him that yet, but I do think it is as close to an 8 as you can get without giving one, and there's no other option than a 7.9 mathematically.
Well, you could do 7.95. You could just throw in a little bit of an average there, but that could be Paul. Paul could do that. Paul, if you don't know, by the way, you can choose any number that you want, 1 to 10.
And then we comparing him to other Hassani of the week winners, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly. Realistically, anybody who wins the Hassani of the week, if you're doing player ratings for that team, they'd all be getting 10 out of 10s.
Exactly.
So, So I'm not going to give a 10 out of 10 then, even though I think he would deserve it. If
precisely.
Ratings. So I'm thinking compared to Benzema last season, some of the others.
And Darwin Nunez, just so you have a bit of reference from this season, got I believe a 7.55 for his performance. Or no, actually that was Daniel Vitiello, wasn't it, Mac? Yeah. Darwin Nunez got a 6.5 for scoring 4 goals in preseason. I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
So preseason matters a lot less, but we are quite harsh on these rankings, on these ratings. So don't be afraid to be harsh, even though it was a great performance.
Okay, 3 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding.
It's gonna really screw up the averages.
Yeah, just the averages.
I'll give him a 7.6.
Okay, nice. So now you've gone and made my life great. So now I have to use the calculator to show everyone that I'm really good at math again, just to make sure that they know, I can definitely do all of this in my head as I'm trying to talk really slow while I get this. Okay, 7.8. There we go.
There it is.
That's the average. I did that all in my head. No calculator. I just used the calculator to see the numbers to sort of line it up.
There's one thing when we were talking about Arsenal I thought might have gotten brought up.
What?
I don't think we can possibly end the episode without talking about this. Do you see the
wait, Paul, before you say it. Is this something you want to end the episode on?
It's the Amazon documentary.
Okay, okay. So first let's do predictions and then end it on Amazon documentary.
Okay,
Okay. Fair.
Okay, so predictions, we have we'll fly through these. Last week I went 1-2. Last week Mac went 2-1. Now I am 8-7. Mac, you are
7-8, I believe.
Okay, we're getting close. It's close for season 4, but Mac is still winning on a landslide compared to me for all time. And
slowly but surely, though.
I'm tooting my horn, chugging my way back up to the top.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll make it back up there. But the 3 games that we're predicting for this week are PSV versus AS Monaco, Arsenal versus Leicester City, and Chelsea versus Tottenham. Starting with the first one, I said PSV versus AS Monaco. Rapid fire, Paul, what do you think?
Champions League, it must be.
Yeah,
it's
Champions League
qualifier. Yeah.
Who's at home? PSV?
Yes.
1-1. We'll go with that.
You going to draw?
Ooh, draw.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mac?
I'm going to go with a PSV win, and I'm going to go with a Xavi Simons game-winning goal. because of his new transfer to PSV.
Dude, it's class. It's what you love to see.
It's class.
What you absolutely love to see.
Yeah.
I'm going with an AS Monaco win. Trying to,
Wow.
change the tides here. Be a bit different.
Yeah.
Going with
And
season 3, Lenny, on this one. I feel
Nice.
it. I really
nice.
feel it.
Okay.
Second
And
one.
It would not be an Arsenal episode without predicting the next Arsenal match, at home versus Leicester City. Leo, do you want to go? And we can go
got it,
opposite
bro.
order. Yeah.
I got it. I'm going Arsenal. I believe in the boys. I believe in Paul. It's our episode with Paul, so you can't do him dirty on this one. And I love what they're doing right now. Yeah.
I'm also going with an Arsenal win.
Nice.
Even if I didn't think Arsenal were going to win, I'd pick us to win on this.
Wow.
So I have to go with Arsenal.
Everyone believes.
But
Everyone
I
believes.
actually do think we'll win this game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
I
I think it's you guys are the favorites with how you
for
guys
sure.
have looked in preseason and start of season. I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to win that game. The last one, Chelsea versus Tottenham, probably the biggest game in regards to team quality on both sides. Don't want to mug off Arsenal too much, so I say the both sides. But Chelsea versus Tottenham, what are we thinking?
I'll go first. I'm going to go with a draw here. I think Tottenham are the better team than Chelsea, but Chelsea at home might just tip it a little bit more towards the home team, but I think Tottenham are good enough to get a result out of Stamford Bridge.
Nice. Paul?
This is a tough one, I don't like picking Spurs to win, but looking at how Chelsea played today, I wasn't entirely impressed. So I'm gonna take a bullet and pick Spurs to win this game.
Wow.
There's no way.
Yeah, I think
This guy, he's really going against what his club would tell him to do.
no, I was not impressed by Chelsea at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I can't say I was either.
It's not like I'm a huge Chelsea fan either. Like I ideally I'd want both teams to lose, but like that's not possible.
It's fair, yeah.
You could have gone with a draw.
I don't think so. I think Chelsea are too poor.
Do you think you guys will be able to beat Tottenham? Seriously speaking.
If I was to guess, I would say it pretty much the same thing happens every season. We win at home, they win when they're at home.
Yeah.
Maybe a draw thrown in there somewhere, but I don't see us losing at home, and I don't really see us winning away either.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. 100%. I'm going with a Chelsea win on this one. Go against the Tides. Season 3,
Nice.
Lenny, is here to stay.
Nice.
Unless it needs to go. Next episode when I realize that I'm losing again. But yeah, we'll see how those predictions pan out. Now, Paul, we need to talk about the documentary, what everyone has been waiting for. What did you think of All or Nothing Arsenal?
Wait, how many? Because there's 3 episodes out,
3
right?
episodes.
Guess how many episodes I'm in?
0.
I watched
Mac?
the first one.
Everyone on the podcast knows I'm just here to give comments about what you guys are saying because I can't watch a series to save my life.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the first episode. Obviously, it's the worst part of your season. But I think Amazon just does like a really good job with those documentaries. It's actually going to be fun because all your players are so young this season that I feel like the banter is going to be there. When it was like Tottenham and Man City, it was a more mature squad, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. And I heard Arteta gets like pretty, he has a bit of a meltdown at some points in the season and starts fighting and stuff. So it'll be entertaining at least.
I watched all 3 of them yesterday, of course.
Nice.
Of course, like even though it's like our lowest point in the season, like it's still fascinating to see what it's like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I know we lost to Brentford and got smashed by City and Chelsea and Liverpool. Like it doesn't really like it's not like it like hurts to watch that. Like it's just fascinating, and it's just because I'm an Arsenal fan myself. It's just like it's completely different. Like seeing all the players I love, like watching the Spurs game. Like there's some things you learn about that. Like you see like what Arteta does. Some of it, it's interesting. I'm not going to spoil too much, but he's got some interesting like ways of motivating players and ways of coaching certain things.
Yeah.
It's just like what you'd never expect. Like have you watched what was the game it got to? Did it get to the Norwich game?
Yes, it ended right before the North London derby.
Okay, so with the Norwich game, he was talking about how like he like had like the heart disease as a kid and like
Oh
almost
yeah,
didn't
with
make
the
it. Like,
whiteboard. Yeah, he was like
yeah,
writing stuff down. Yeah.
yeah, it's like can you imagine like back in like 2019 if Brad Fuel did that for our MTA team, Lenny?
I love how much press you're giving Brad Fuel on YouTube. Man's gonna have a whole business going on after this. I do
Conor
remember
McGregor
Brad
and Brad
though.
Fuel being mentioned in the same episode of the podcast.
Who would have thought?
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
never happened before.
No, but like seriously though, like
I mean, people can relate, like a youth coach.
yeah, like
and
that's
Brad
just
Fuel
like
was a youth coach.
yeah, like but like with the Arteta thing, it's like I kind of think like you imagine like when you've got all these professional players and professional managers playing at the highest level that like what like you'll see in those dressing rooms is just like completely like unheard of and you just be like utterly blown away. But like they're all human beings above that. Like they all
Yeah.
like connect to the same things. Like I'll be motivated by the same things that Bukayo Saka will be motivated by, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
No, I think
really,
that's a
yeah.
human way to like connect people, especially with how I think I get caught up in it a lot. And doing interviews with pros and other people in the industry has probably helped with it. But I think I get caught up in it a lot. I bet you do, Mac, and you, Paul. But we oftentimes think that these pros or high level players aren't really human, and we don't get a chance to really connect to them. So seeing that they are, like seeing what drives them is the same thing that might drive us. Seeing, you know, how their brains, how their personalities are, you know, it's cool because we get to feel that really human connection to those people. And I know I'm kind of getting deep now for anyone who doesn't want that, but I mean, I think it's one of the coolest parts about those documentaries, if I were to watch them, because you get to feel that connection. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to watching it. Paul, I saw this one, like it was a TikTok or a reel or something from the All or Nothing, and it was like Arteta drawing like really weird stuff on the whiteboard.
yeah,
You've watched all of them. Did that actually happen?
it does happen. And
It
it's
does?
like yeah, like at first it's one of those things where it's like you don't really like know like what's like you're thinking like, oh, what's this guy doing?
What
But
is
like
he doing?
it, like then as he gets into it, you're like, oh, that like makes sense, and like you get it, and it like clicks with you, and it'll be like a motivator thing. Like there's I'm not gonna spoil it for you, Mac or Lenny, if you decide to watch it.
Yeah.
But there's before the North London Derby, something like that happens.
But he was using like really weird images and
Yeah,
stuff.
there was
He
like that was like the Norwich one. Like he is like
He was like using a graph and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
It's just
really strange.
it's completely interesting. But like it like works. Like we're improving under him as a manager. So
No,
Well,
it's
yeah,
true,
I mean, we
I
touched
think-
on that earlier.
I think another thing you talked about how like the humanizing aspect of seeing what they're like in the dressing room. I think another thing they talk about is like the pressure from the fans, specifically at a club like Arsenal, and specifically in the state that they were in that first episode. We lost 3 games on the trot. People were saying Arteta out, need a new manager, yada yada yada. But like you realize that like they're human beings. Like if you see like abuse on your Twitter, like it's still gonna hurt, and you have to learn like how to either not look at it, or even if you do look at it, just zone it out and keep going.
Yeah.
You'd have to think that's so hard because, you know, you get to a place in your career where you're finally able to feel like you're achieving something. People are paying attention to what you're doing. And then suddenly you realize, you know, you've been a consumer of this your whole life. You've looked up to these people that are talked about online your whole life, and now you have to shut it out. It's gotta be so difficult. Because it's definitely one of the motivators. You get to feel like you finally made it to that level, and as soon as you get there, it would be like if you really wanted to play in front of fans, and you thought that experience was so cool, and then you get there and they're like, "Here's these goggles. When you play, you can't see any of the fans." Right? It's crazy how that works. But I mean, it's the life of being a professional footballer. People don't understand the roller coaster.
Especially with someone like Bukayo Saka after the Euros final. We all know what happened following that.
Yeah.
Like I remember he was talking about in the documentary, he was like, it was always my dream to play for Arsenal. And he's like, I'm living my dream and I love every minute of it. But
exactly.
like what you don't grow up thinking of is that aspect of it. When you make a mistake and then you've got all the keyboard warriors on Twitter and Instagram saying everything under the sun about you.
Yeah. It's crazy, dude. It is mad. That's where we got to leave the podcast off. I think it's a good way to end, just talking about some of the stuff that is more deep related to Arsenal and the whole footballing world. I think that was a good way to end. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the podcast.
Always a pleasure to come on.
Dude, it was so fun talking to you. I know the people watching will also think the same. It was definitely so fun listening to you. For them, it was a great chat. I really enjoyed it, especially hearing what you had to say about Arsenal, coming from someone who pays a lot more attention to everything that's going on within the club than I do. So thank you for that. Thanks to everyone listening who listened through the episode. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, any debates you want to hear, literally anything at all, DM us, shoot us an email, do whatever you want to get in touch with us, and we will try to respond to you and get it into an episode. Otherwise, just keep your eyes peeled. We have some really cool interviews on the way with different people and some other really cool episode ideas. So just be on the lookout for those. And until next week, peace.